Welcome back to our garden. This is where we grow a lot of our food. In the months of August and September, we really try to challenge ourselves to not buy fresh produce from the grocery store because we have so much food back here in what we like to call our backyard grocery store. So today I want to take you around and show you what's growing in our garden and also show you what we're harvesting these days. Thanks for joining me. Let's get started. Today I'm going to get started back here in this part of the garden where we have sunflowers growing on this side. These sunflowers are huge. They're probably 12, 13 feet tall, and they are doing really well. In the same row where we planted sunflowers, we also planted some tomatoes, as you can see over here. These are our big tomatoes, and they are finally starting to blush. It's been taking a long time, but they're getting there. I think these are the Sheboygan tomatoes that I also grew last year for making tomato sauce, and we're not quite ready to harvest those. But over here on this other side, where we're also growing 2 rows of tomatoes, we have lots of cherry tomatoes, and those we have been harvesting already. We can always harvest cherry tomatoes earlier than the big tomatoes, so that's one of the reasons why we like growing cherry tomatoes. Not only are they tasty, but they also ripen sooner, and we can start harvesting a lot sooner. Here you can see some of our other big tomatoes. This one is a Sheboygan tomato that is almost ready to harvest, and these are just so huge and really looking great this year. So I have some cherry tomatoes that are ready to harvest as well. We have really been battling with weeds this year. It has been awful, and we have not been able to stay on top of them, and I decided to give myself permission to just let them go. So you can see there's a lot of weeds over here. And in between the 2 tomato rows, we have carrots growing. So those are not weeds, but it's just a lot going on in there as well. We found a lot of tomato hornworms in our tomatoes. I think one day we picked over 20 tomato hornworms. We stopped counting after 20. So I'm guessing it was probably closer to 30 or maybe even more in just one day. And then the subsequent days, we were able to get even more. So because of what we did, I think we don't have as many right now. At least I don't see any of their activity. I don't see their droppings. I don't see the plants that are struggling because of them. So that has really paid off, because that was a lot of work. I decided to try a new variety, and this is some kind of currant tomato, and these are so tiny. Absolutely cute, but I decided I don't want to grow these again. They're just so tiny that we'd have to like harvest a whole bunch just to make it worth our while. And I don't know. Besides the cute factor that they have, I just don't think they're worth it for us. But it's been fun, and we have a lot of these that are ready today that I'm going to be harvesting. But I'm just not going to be growing these again in the future. This is the second year that we use this back row against our fence to grow sunflowers, and I really love doing this again this year, and we actually have way more sunflowers than last year. Since we decided to plant tomatoes here with the sunflowers, these tomatoes are doing well, but I think they're getting a lot of shade from these sunflowers. That's a note to myself, because that's just something that we tried this year. So I don't know if I want to do this again next year for tomatoes. I think it would be great to have some plants here at the base of the sunflowers, but maybe not tomatoes, because tomatoes do need a lot of sun. And we have been pruning some of the sunflower leaves to just open up the space, and so they would have more light. But I just don't think I'm going to do that again in the future. Now over here on the other side of this tomato row, we have more tomatoes, and like I said, we have carrots growing in between these 2 rows. In this row, I want to say we have about 20 tomato plants maybe. Every year, I start out the year determined to heavily prune my tomato plants so that they will have airflow and to maybe a single stem tomato plant or a double stem. But every year, they get away from me. I did prune them a whole bunch and they are staked up and doing okay, but I was not able to prune them as much as I wanted to. I do make sure that the bottom maybe foot or so is completely pruned. There are no leaves over here, and that really helps. But as we move up the plant, you can see I have like 3, 4, way more stems than I had hoped, but they are doing well anyway. Pruning tomato plants is just one of those things that if you really want to be serious about it, you really have to stay on top of it. Like, I would have to come out here maybe every other day to prune and stake my tomatoes, and it just didn't happen this year, and I'm okay with that. I do see right now some leaves that are starting to get some kind of disease that do need to be pruned, because we still have a good maybe 2 months of these plants growing. So I want to keep them healthy. So yes, I'm going to go through all these and prune away those diseased leaves. So exciting. We have lots of little tomatoes to harvest here this morning. Next to the tomatoes over here, I have a row of cucumbers. Actually 2 rows of cucumbers, and in between the 2 rows of cucumbers, I have 2 rows of onions. So there's a lot going on in this bed, and this has been a huge success. We have been harvesting cucumbers for weeks now and eating lots of cucumbers and also fermenting cucumbers as well. Just yesterday, I harvested a ton, and already I have lots that are ready to harvest. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest a few right now. You can see some of these leaves are starting to get a disease, and I'm not going to worry about it. There's nothing I can do about it. I did go through this and prune a whole bunch, but the plant is going fairly quickly, and I think it's okay. We have had a really, really good harvest over here, and I'm okay with just letting this plant go. Even though this is happening, I'm pretty sure we still have about another month till the plant completely dies, and we're still gonna have lots and lots of cucumbers from here. It is so easy to miss some of these cucumbers, and sometimes I think I got all of the ones that are ready, and then the next day I come, there's a huge one that I had missed from the previous day. But we just do our best. Oh my goodness, so many over here. I don't even know if I want to harvest all of them. I already have a lot that are fermenting, and so many that we are using in our daily meals. We have been eating cucumbers in lots of different ways, and something new that we tried this year is actually sauteing cucumbers. We have never done that before, and frankly, it just sounded a little bit weird, but it was so good. So we sauteed our cucumbers in coconut oil with some garlic and a little bit of salt, and they were really delicious. So if you are growing tons of cucumbers and you don't know what to do with it, because you can only eat so many salads or sliced cucumbers or pickles, I really encourage you to try sauteing them. I think you will be pleasantly surprised. It's something that is not common here in North America, but in other parts of the world it is. So you really might enjoy it. Here's an example of one that I must have not seen yesterday that was ready, and now it just got really huge. So we still don't mind when they get huge like this. We do remove the seeds though, because the seeds just get too big. But then we can use them in salads and sauteing and everything else. Next to the cucumbers, we have a bed full of carrots. And these ones here went to seed because these were carrots that I planted last summer, and I left them here through the winter, and in the spring they started to go to flower. So I decided to leave these here so that I could collect some seeds, and I'm actually going to do that today. Some of these here are ready. I don't think I need all of these flowers because just one of these is going to give me hundreds and hundreds of seeds. So I will be collecting some of these, and I think I will be removing also and harvesting all the carrots in this bed over here. Some of these flowers are not completely dried out. You want them to be darker and dry, like these ones here. You can see these ones are still a little bit green. So I'm not going to harvest those. But with the ones that I have, I think I have enough for my carrot next year. So I don't think I need the rest of the flowers. This is going to be a big one. The goal is to harvest this entire bed because I want to prepare this bed for the next crop. I have a few different things that I want to plant. I have broccoli and cabbages. I want to plant a whole bunch of radishes, lots of lettuce. So, oh, this one's huge. It has it's a little bit funny looking. We have had a few that are like this that just have like growths everywhere, and we still make it work. We still eat them, just cut off those little parts that are not necessary. But for some reason we've had a few of those. But we've also had some really nice long thick ones like this one. So lots of good carrots over here, and every once in a while some small ones. So I think that just happened because I probably missed a few when I was thinning these out. But that's what we're doing right now. We're finishing up harvesting this entire bed to prepare this bed for the next crop. So next to the carrot bed that we just harvested, we have a whole row of green beans here. And as you can see, some of these leaves are starting to get nasty. I'm sure it has some kind of disease. I mean, this has been producing a ton for us, and it has been growing for a long time. So it's definitely time for us to probably get our last harvest today, and then we want to remove all these because I'm going to use this bed as well for fall crops. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest these. It's probably not going to be a whole bunch, but that's okay because they have already given us a lot of green beans. So this is about the size that I like to harvest them. But sometimes if I don't get out here every day, sometimes there are a few that just get away from me, and then they just become very thick like these ones. And then I'm not a big fan of using these, although maybe they'll be okay. Because I'm going to be removing these plants, I'm not going to let them go to seed. I have other green bean beds that I will allow to go to seed, so we can use those seeds next year. But these ones, for now, I'm just harvesting what I can today. And in the next couple of days, I'm going to clear out this entire row. I have my seedlings that are ready to be transplanted. But the next couple of days are going to be really hot. We're going to get up to the 90s. So I think I'm going to wait till next week to transplant them out because these plants don't like a lot of heat. So that's why I can still let this plant grow for a few more days until I'm ready to transplant my other seedlings. And that's okay because I still have a lot of flowers, a lot of little green beans that in the next few days will be ready to harvest again. But as you can see, I am getting a harvest, but not a ton. Like I said, I've already picked pounds and pounds from this row right here. Before we move on to the next crop, I want to show you that I have another row of green beans, and this one's still looking very healthy because this one was planted, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 weeks after the one I showed you. So this one is at its prime right now. We're harvesting a ton from these ones, and this is great. And then I have another row of green beans somewhere else in the garden that was planted after our garlic was harvested. So that's probably been in the ground, I want to say 3 weeks. And those are not fruiting quite yet, but they are starting to develop flowers. So this over here has been really good to harvest. This is a different variety. These are jade beans that I get from Baker Creek Seeds. And I actually really like these a lot. I think I want to grow more of these. The other bed that I just harvested, those are Blue Lake bush beans. And I like those as well, but I'm really enjoying these jade beans. For some reason, like these ones get a lot longer and straighter, and the Blue Lake bush beans, I've noticed that they will curve, and I kind of don't like it when they curve. It's just an aesthetics thing. It kind of annoys me a little bit, but I mean, they taste just as good, but I prefer them long like these jade beans here. I don't can green beans. That is something that I haven't learned to do, and to be honest, I don't even really think I want to. I am not a big fan of canned vegetables, but we have been freezing a lot of green beans. We have several pounds of green beans that are in the freezer already, and then we have been using a lot of these also in our meals every week. And like I said, we really try to get the months of August and September, we really try to just eat from what we grow. So we're eating a lot of green beans, we're eating a lot of carrots and onions, zucchini, like the things that we are growing right now. So that's one way of eating seasonally as well. We're eating what's in season right now, and then I don't have to worry too much about preserving and going through that entire process. So in front of the green beans, we have this asparagus bed. And there's nothing to harvest here because we harvested all we needed to harvest this spring. But I just want you to see how tall these fronds are. Had I known that asparagus plants get this tall, I would have chosen a different part of the garden. I had no idea. I thought asparagus were nothing but those little stems that we get in the spring. I didn't know this happened. So this definitely covers the view of my garden, so I would have wanted to put this somewhere towards the back of the garden, and it kind of creates some shade, some unwanted shade over here by the green beans, but it's okay. I had Glenn put this wire on the sides of the asparagus because otherwise these fronds just fall over the green beans, and that's a problem, and then we also lose this walkway over here. But there are also other things that are growing in this asparagus bed, especially over here in this end, and I want to show you that. So in this end, we have a lot of green beans growing. I have California Wonders here, and I also have Corno di Toro, and those are doing really well. We are using some of these tomato cages for them, which is great, but we ran out of them, and because of that, some of our pepper plants are falling over because they are just loaded with fruit. But we have a ton to harvest today. We don't like to harvest unless we're going to be cooking them in the next couple of days. So since we are going to use them today and this weekend, I'm going to harvest a good bunch right now. This one here is falling over, but it has some good sized peppers, so I'm going to harvest these. And the poor plant is just going to continue to droop to one side. This one right over here has some kind of issue here at the bottom, and that's okay. We'll just throw this to the chickens. Here's a huge one, a Corno di Toro, and it's starting to turn colors, so I think I'm gonna leave it. Here's another one that's turning red and it's almost ready to harvest. I'm just gonna leave it for a couple more days. We like to let them turn red, but I'm gonna harvest, but I am going to harvest other green ones from here, like this one here, for example. There we go. That is a good size. And this one here is just so heavy with so much fruit that I think I'm going to cut some out so that it's not so heavy and so that it can continue to produce. But I will leave the red one just because we like letting some of them turn red. This is such a small plant, but it is loaded with peppers. So I'm going to take some of its burden off and remove some of these big ones. Same thing with this one here, and it's really falling over. I'm just gonna remove just a couple of these here. That's a huge one. Okay, that should be good. Even though there's a ton more, I don't want to harvest too much because we don't have a lot of space in the fridge with all this harvest coming in and all the things that we have already. This is our berry patch, and as you can see, it is loaded with berries. These have exploded in growth. They are so huge, so tall. Glenn has been adding wire to these to support the blackberries, and that has been working really well. We are harvesting blackberries and raspberries and strawberries every single day, and we always have some that we can freeze, as well as eating some for our dessert every day. So this has been a lot of fun. I'm not going to harvest any this morning because we have a little routine that every afternoon or evening after we're done eating dinner, Nico likes to come out here and harvest berries right before we eat them for dessert. There are a ton of bees here that just enjoy this entire area, but that makes it a little bit intimidating for us to just kind of hang out in this area because of that, but we are loving it. Berries this year have been a huge hit, and we're just so excited for that. Over here I have 2 lemon balm bushes, and these are huge, and I have harvested so much already, pruned them back so many times, and they keep coming back stronger each time. So today I'm going to harvest a whole bunch of this. I want to make sure I dry some for tea, and then whatever we don't end up using, we will give to the chickens and the bunnies as well. They love it. Some of these are starting to go to flower, so I want to make sure I prune it back so that doesn't happen. But I know I can get a ton of lemon balm for tea from these bushes. This is my herb bed, and it is looking fantastic. I have 2 basil plants, oregano over here. Also, this back here is oregano that went to flower. I think I can still use the oregano, although the bees are loving the flowers. I kind of don't want to cut it back. Then I also have rosemary and thyme, just a lot of herbs here that one of these days I need to take the time to come out here and just focus on harvesting herbs so I can dry them and save them for the winter. Because if I don't, they're just going to continue to grow and go to flower, and it might be too late to use them. But I have been loving this bed, and so have the bees. So we finally made it to this side of the garden, the side that is closest to the chicken coop. And over here along the back side of the garden, we still have the sunflowers. And we have been growing some peppers at the base of these sunflowers that are not doing very well. And I think it's just because they're just getting too much shade from the sunflowers. But also, they're getting a lot of shade from this butternut squash that's growing back here in this corner. there is a lot going on here in this corner. So these peppers are kind of struggling, but that's okay because we have a lot of peppers everywhere and we're fine. So behind me here we have butternut squash, and you can see back here we have 4 butternut squash that are growing right on the fence, and we wanted to make sure we use this fence as a trellis, and that's working out really well. And this butternut squash plant is just going crazy. I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2 butternut squash plants, but it's growing well and we are happy with that. And right in front of this jungle back here, we have another bed that has carrots. And this wasn't supposed to be a carrot bed, but it kind of ended up being that way. It was supposed to be a zucchini bed interplanted with carrots, but the carrots kind of took over. I planted the zucchinis a little bit later in the season, and I did that on purpose so that when my first crop of zucchinis starts to get disease and starts to struggle, like these would be strong and big by now, but that hasn't been the case. I think I only have 1 zucchini plant that's doing really well, and the other ones are really struggling. So it is what it is. I know I'm gonna have some really good carrots from here. We have an entire carrot bed that we just harvested, so I am not gonna harvest these yet. I did plant these a little bit later than the other ones, so I'm okay with leaving these here in the ground to keep growing and maturing, and we're gonna harvest them maybe next month once we are done eating the ones that we just harvested. So let's move on to the next bed because I want to show you something pretty cool. I am really excited about this bed. This is something new that we tried this year, and this is growing zucchini vertically, and it is working well. It does take a little bit of management because you have to come out here and make sure you keep pruning the leaves and tying up the plants, but they are working well. The leaves in themselves don't have any powdery mildew, which is exciting, but we do have squash vine borers, and we got them pretty early on in the season when they were still really small plants. And I just didn't do anything about it. There's just really nothing you can do. So I just left it, and the plants continue to grow and fruit, and we're just gonna let them go as far as they can. In between these 2 rows of zucchinis, I have some onions, and they're growing okay. They're small compared to the other ones we have that I'll show you in a bit, but they're onions, and I'm okay with that. So this has been an exciting bed. It lets me know that this is possible, and I just want to do this again next year and just do it better. This one here is a beautiful one that we get to harvest today. Oh, perfect. And you can see that we're using these twisty things to keep them attached to the pole, and that's working out really well. So I need to come with my pruners and start snipping off these leaves here so that it will continue to grow up. And these leaves, because we don't have any fruit down here anymore, like these leaves are no longer going to be useful. So next we have these 2 onion beds. And once again, these onions are not very big, but I am pleased because when I planted them, first of all, I transplanted them later than I wanted to. I think it was towards the end of May. I usually plant them mid-April. And the seedlings that I transplanted were just so tiny, really pathetic looking, that I didn't even think would even grow. So this that we have here is something, and I am pleased with that. So this is just an onion bed here, and this other bed here is also just an onion bed, but when it was growing, I got so many volunteer tomato plants. I actually could not rip them out. They were doing amazing. So in the end, I decided to keep the tomato plants along that edge over there, and we put a trellis so that those plants are growing up, and the onions are growing just fine over here. Just a few weeks ago, this was an incredible mess. It was so overgrown. We had so many other volunteer plants like chamomile and borage that I did not have the heart to remove, so they grew so big. It was too much. And then these tomato plants had grown huge over here, so we had a big task. We cut a whole bunch of this tomato plant and we secured it to the fence, and that's working out really well because it's also providing some shade to our chickens back there, and they really enjoy hanging out in that area, and that makes it more manageable for us. We can actually see the fruit that is ripening, we can harvest, we can kind of manage that area, and so that's what we ended up doing with this. That wasn't the plan. We weren't supposed to grow any tomatoes here because we already have a lot of tomatoes in other parts of the garden. But every year, whatever plant comes up on its own, any volunteer plants always do better than the plants that we planted. So same thing with this. These are doing so much better than the other tomatoes that we planted. So we love having these volunteer plants around. We finally get to harvest these onions. I am so excited. These onions are huge. These are the ones that I planted first earlier on in the season. And even though they struggled a little bit at the beginning, they ended up being amazing. We have already harvested lots of onions from here, and we've been eating from this bed in the last few weeks. But today we actually want to harvest all of these onions because we need to prepare these onions for the next crop. So let's get to harvesting. And you can just see these are just ready to be harvested. So beautiful. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these. In this bed at the beginning of the season, I also grew some lettuce. But once the lettuce bolted and these onions started to get big, I removed the lettuce, and then these onions had just had a lot of space to grow. Look at these. These are just so incredibly beautiful. Some, like these tiny ones, didn't do much, but hey, whatever. We can still use them. These two are the biggest ones we got this year, and they are amazing. Look at the size of these. This one and this one here, that is the biggest. So huge. So exciting. We have a lot more to harvest, so let's get going. A few weeks ago, we harvested all of our garlic, and we had over 120 garlic heads. We left those in our garage to cure for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And just this past week, we moved them into our basement, and I already separated a whole bunch of garlic that we're going to use in the fall for planting, and that is so exciting because I will not need to be buying any garlic seeds this year. So I'm really looking forward to that. Our garlics are just looking so good, and I have a ton for preserving and also a ton for planting, and so we are excited. Once we harvested our lettuce from this bed, I decided to use some of the space to plant other things. I planted parsley right here, and you'll see in the other bed in a second that I planted other things in there as well. So we didn't want to waste this space after the lettuce. But now that we are going to be using this bed for a fall crop, I have to decide what I'm going to do with this. And in the next couple of days, we're going to be getting these 4 raised beds ready for our fall crops. So in this other onion bed, I planted some other things to fill in the space, and I had a few extra pepper plants, so I planted them here, and these are growing really, really well. That's why I wasn't concerned about the other pepper plants that are kind of shaded out by the sunflowers or the squash, because we have peppers everywhere and we have a ton. So these are really good size right now, perfect for me to harvest. And I have even more over here in this one. So we're going to continue harvesting these onions from this bed as well. So in the next few weeks, we are going to be preparing these 4 raised beds for our fall crops, along with the carrot bed that we just harvested and the green beans that we will clean out in the next few days. So lots of work coming up. I am really hopeful that we're going to be growing lots of different things in the fall as well. Finally, I want to show you my flower patch over here. These flowers bring me so much joy. One of my goals this year was to grow flowers just for fun, not for medicinal purposes or anything like that, but just to bring me joy. And I have been harvesting bouquets of flower, putting them all over my house, and that really makes my heart happy. And this has been so fun for me. I am growing zinnias. All of these are zinnias. Zinnias are really beginner friendly, and I definitely want to grow these again next year and maybe even experiment with other types of flowers. But these are looking amazing. I did try to grow other flowers like cosmos, straw flowers, I believe, and some others that I can't remember, but those ones did not work out. Zinnias are the only ones that worked well for me this year. But next year will bring lots of opportunities for me to try new flower varieties. Thank you so much for joining me. It is always such a joy to have you come along with us. I love sharing our garden with you. I love sharing what we do here in our very small homestead. So it is always a joy. I will see you next time.